Suman crosses the Canary River, a geotechnical engineering story. Chapter 1, Journey Through the Night. Suman! Bua, my father stirred me awake. We need you! My eyes fluttered open. I laid there for a moment, not sure whether I had been dreaming. Through the window, the sky was dark, much darker than the misty blue I usually saw just before sunrise when I normally awoke. Bua called me again. Come quickly! A raking cough broke through the night air. It was Aji, my grandmother. My heart clenched as I sprang up from my sleeping mat and walked across the packed earth floor of the living room towards my grandmother. I could barely see Bua's face in the darkness, but I heard the worry in his voice. Aji needs to go to the clinic, Bua said. I helped lift Aji out of the bed and wrapped her arms around my shoulder. It seemed to weigh less than a bird's wing. We eased her to the door and we guided her into the cart we used for carrying vegetables from the field so she wouldn't waste energy walking. Bua and I pulled the cart towards the Karnali River. Sunlight was just starting to shine on the golden goddess statue at the temple as we left the village. But by the time we reached the river, the morning light had turned the sky pale blue. Bua lifted Aji and helped her step across the sandbags laid in the river as a bridge. I followed behind them, carrying the cart. Off in the distance, I saw a small stone building with a thatched roof, the medical clinic. When we arrived, Bua told me to wait outside. I wanted to be with Aji, but I knew better than to challenge Bua, so I sat leaning against the building. I closed my eyes and picturing the goddess statue across the river, asking for a blessing. Chapter 2, A Distraction at School. The next day at school, I kept staring out the window, thinking about Aji. Bua told me that the doctor had given Aji some medicine, and in a few days she would be fine. But Aji seems so frail. What will happen if Aji gets sick during the rainy season, I thought. During the rainy season, the rain often fell so hard that the river would flood and we couldn't go to school. If the floods were bad enough, we wouldn't be able to cross the river for anything, not even to reach the clinic. Let's go, Suman, Depshi said as he patted my shoulder, waking me from my thoughts. We don't have much time before our math lesson. I followed him outside. Depshi and I gathered the flat rocks scattered around the schoolyard from yesterday's game of ball and stacked them into a tower. Anna Miss, our teacher, jogged up behind us. Here we go again, she said. Are you going to be easier on me today? I'm a guest here, you know. Maybe you could let me win at least once. We'll see, Depshi said. If you keep practicing, I think you'll be able to win someday. Miss Anna had only learned to play our favorite game a month ago. She said they didn't have this game in the United States, where she grew up. But as soon as she came to work at our school in Nepal, we taught her all the rules. Everyone form a line behind me. I picked up the worn brown leather ball at my feet, and I threw it towards the rock tower. The rocks clinked as they tumbled down. The next player, Anna Miss, grabbed the ball and tried to tag me with it before I could pile all the rocks back up. I barely piled up half of the rocks when the ball bounced off my arm. I was out of the game. Yay, Miss Anna Miss, the classmates called as they gathered around to congratulate her on her first win. Anna Miss smiled and thanked everyone, then crouched beside me to help pile the rocks up again. Are you okay? She asked. I'm glad I finally won, but you never lose at ball. She turned her face and met my eyes. Besides, you seem a little sad today. I'm just tired, I said. Then I told Anna Miss about our nighttime journey over the river with Aji. Anna Miss nodded. That sounds like a rough night. I'm glad your grandmother is going to be okay. She was quiet for a few moments. I have an idea that might cheer you up a little, she said. Then she raised her voice so everyone could hear. Despite today's win, I think I have proven that I am not the best ball player in the world. What if I showed everyone a game I grew up with, one that I'm good at? That sounds like fun, I said, my spirits brightening. What's the game like? Depeche asked, coming up next to us. Give me a few days to set it up. No hints before then, Anna Miss said. Anna Miss began to usher us back into the class for math. I tried to think about her new game rather than how the river would change during the rainy season. Chapter 3, A Special Project. On the way home from school, my sister Sita and I passed the Golden Temple at the edge of our village. I looked up at the goddess carved into the pillar. She seemed to be staring down at me. I touched my forehead and I asked for a blessing. The Aji recovered quickly. Sita and I approached Suman, a neighboring farmer. Every day on the way home from school, he'd call out to us, "Tell me what you learned today in school." If he approved our answers, he would let us pass. If not, we had to tell him something else we studied. As we approached today, he was talking with another farmer. Pressing my hands together under my chin, I greeted them by saying, "Namaste." "Ah, Suman, Sita," Suman said. "I have a different question for you today, one that is not about school. Can you tell me about what your Bua has to say about the possible project for our village?" "What project?" I asked, wrinkling my brow and looking towards Sita. She shrugged, not knowing what Shaman meant either. "He hasn't mentioned it to you?" Sama said. "If a respected man like your Bua isn't talking about this project, I wonder if we will go through with it." Bua was one of the only men in the village who had gone to college. He traveled all the way to Kathmandu, the capital of Nepal, to attend. Sometimes he would tell Sita and me about the city and about Shargalamata, or Mount Everest, towered above the buildings there. Now many of the other farmers come to him with questions about village politics. "Tell your Buddha I will pay him a visit later this evening to hear his thoughts about this project," Shamra said before turning back to the other farmers. "Sita," I said as we walked away, "did you hear that? A bridge! Do you think it's true that the village is going to build a bridge?" Sita seemed to know how excited I was by the way she smiled at me. "I don't know, Shamun," she said. "You're the biggest gossip in the village, and if you don't know about the bridge, then there must not be anything to know," she joked. I laughed. Sita was partly right. I liked to talk to all the neighbors, and Bua did talk to me about all the important happenings in the village. He always said it was good for me to understand these things, since I would be involved in village decision-making when I grew up. As we got closer to home, I could see Bua working in the rice fields behind the house. We live far away from Shagmartha, in the Tiria area of the country, where the land is flat and green. "Well, I guess I should go hear what Bua has to say," I said to Sita. "What kind of village gossip would I be if I didn't know what was going on?" Sita grinned and headed into the house while I went to find Bua. "Suman, there you are," Bua said as he saw me approaching. "I've been trying to finish turning this soil before dark. Now that you're here, can you take over for me so that I can go speak to your grandparents?" "Is Aji worse?" I held my breath. "Aji is fine, Suman." I felt relieved, but wondered what Bua wanted to discuss with my grandparents. "I need to talk to them about something else," Bua continued, "something important to the village." "I wanted to talk to you about something too," I said. "Shaiman mentioned a bridge." "What is happening?" "Nothing yet, just talk," Bua said. I opened my mouth to press further, but he raised his hand, cutting off my questions. "I know you're curious, man," he said. "When we adults figure things out, I'll explain them to you." With that, he turned and strolled towards the house.